Wise men share their best. Look, a wise man said one day, a new star in the sky. Do you see it? Yes, we see the star, said another wise man. That is the star we must follow. It will take us to a new king. The wise men knew that the star would lead them to a new king. This king had been sent by God. The wise men rode on some camels. They followed the star for many days. At last the wise men came to a city. Where can we find the new king? The wise men asked some people. A new king, the people said. We have only one king. His name is Herod. Another king? Asked Herod when he heard what the people said. I am the only king here. I cannot have another king in my country. I must find this king and kill him. King Herod talked with the wise men. I have heard that the new king is in Bethlehem, he said. When you find him, tell me who he is. The wise men went to Bethlehem. The star went too. It went before them until it stopped over a house. He is here, the wise men said. When they went into the house, they found Jesus, the new king. They were very happy. We have brought our best gifts for the new king, the wise men told Mary and Joseph. Then they gave their gifts to Jesus. That night God told the wise men about King Herod. He told them that Herod wanted to kill Jesus. He told them to go back home some other way. Here it says the wise men were very happy when they found Jesus. The next day, the wise men left for their home, but they did not go back to King Herod. They did what God had told them. They knew they must obey God. No one must kill the new king, they said. We know that God sent him. He is God's son. The wise men were very happy that they had seen God's son. They were very happy that they could give him their best gifts. How can you give your best to God? Some new words: Bethlehem, son, camel, Mary, Jesus, Herod, wise. New thoughts to think. Did the wise men give Jesus their best gifts? What kind of gifts does God give us? What kind of gifts do you give God? Do you give him your best? What did you give to God last week? What will you give him this week? Think about the gifts you can give to God. Write down some of them or ask Mother or Father to help you. Here are some you can write. I can give God some money. I can talk to God. I can sing to God. I can go to God's house. I can tell others about God. A boy shares his food. Mother, Mother, a boy shouted as he ran into his house. My friends are going around the lake to see Jesus. May I go too, please? The boy's mother smiled. Yes, you may go, she said, but be careful. I will, said the boy. May I have some food to take along? The mother looked in her kitchen. She found 5 little loaves of bread and 2 fish. She put the food in a little basket. The boy was happy that he could share his food with Jesus. The boy took the basket of food. He ran to be with his friends. They talked and laughed as they walked around the big lake. Look at all those people, the boy said to his friends. We will never get to see Jesus now. The boy and his friends sat down on the ground. They could hear Jesus, but they were very sad that they could not see him. Jesus talked for a long time. He said many wonderful things about God. The boy and his friends listened to all that Jesus said. At last it was evening. "I'm hungry," said the boy. "I'll share my food with you," he said to his friends. The boy and his friends took the bread and fish from the basket, but before they could eat the food, they heard someone shouting. "Does anyone have food?" a man called. "Jesus wants some food." The boy looked at his friends. "Let's give our food to Jesus," he said. So the boy and his friends took their food to Jesus. They watched Jesus break many pieces. They watched Jesus break many pieces from the bread and fish. Soon the mothers and fathers and boys and girls had all they wanted to eat. Jesus could do this because he was God's son. Jesus smiled at the boy. He gave the boy and his friends some food to eat too. The boy was so glad he had shared his food with Jesus, but he was too happy to say anything. So he sat down near Jesus and ate his bread and fish. You can share your money with Jesus. You can help someone far away get a Bible. Some new words in this story are sent, evening, careful, listen, loaves, and Bible. Why did the boy share his food with Jesus? What if he had kept it all? Did the boy help Jesus do his work? Can you help Jesus by sharing what you have with him? What can you share with him? Ask some friends to do this with you. 10 of you each could give 1 cent each day. In 1 year, you would have $36.50 to share with Jesus. Then you could ask someone to buy Bibles for children who do not have any. This would help Jesus do his work. Doing what God wants. Abraham obeys God. One day God talked to Abraham. "There is something you must do for me," God said. "I will do anything for you," said Abraham. "Then take your son, Isaac, to a mountain," God said. "Burn him on an altar." Abraham went away to do what God said. Abraham was afraid. He was very sad too. How could God ask him to do this? "I told God I would do anything for him," Abraham thought. "Now I must do what he said." So Abraham took his son Isaac up on the mountain. He made a stone altar. People in those days killed animals and burned them on stone altars. That was one way they told God, "We love you. We will obey you." "Where is the animal?" Isaac asked. "We must have an animal to burn on the altar." Then Abraham told Isaac what God had said. He told his son what he must do. Isaac knew that his father must obey God, so Isaac lay down on the altar. He would do anything God told him to do. Then an angel called to Abraham. "Don't do anything to your son," the angel said. "God knows now that you will do anything he says. God does not want you to hurt your son." God sent an animal to take Isaac's place. Abraham was so happy. He knew now that God never did want him to hurt Isaac. God just wanted to know if Abraham would obey him. He wanted to know if Abraham would do anything for him. The Bible tells us what God wants. Some new words are Abraham, burn, altar, Isaac, angel, stone. Would Abraham have done anything for God? How do you know? Would you do anything God says? What are some things God wants you to do for Him? Will you do one of those things now? Pray, learn something from the Bible, tell someone about Jesus, give some money for God's work, ask someone to go to God's house with you. And another one I can think of is obey your parents. That is helping God as well. Moses obeys God. Moses was very sad. He thought much about his people in Egypt. They were all slaves, Moses thought. They work all day for the bad king, but the king will not let them do what they want. Moses looked at his sheep. He liked to take care of sheep. He liked to go with his sheep into the fields. He liked to go with them near the mountains. My sheep are happy, Moses thought. They do not have to work for anyone. They can do what they want. Moses thought about the time when he had lived in Egypt. He lived with the king and the princess. Moses had not been a slave. People who lived with the king and princess did not work as slaves. But one day the king had been very angry with Moses. Moses ran away from Egypt to hide. Moses went far away from Egypt to another country. There he took care of sheep. Suddenly, Moses saw a bush on fire. The fire would not stop, but the bush did not burn up. Moses walked near the bush. He wanted to see. Then God talked to Moses. "Do you see the fire that does not stop?" God asked Moses. "I can do many other things like that." Moses knew then that God was talking to him. Men could not do wonderful things that God could. "I want you to take your people away from Egypt," God told Moses. "I want you to go back to Egypt." God said, "I want you to take your people away from Egypt." Moses was afraid. He did not want to do this, but he knew that he must obey God. So Moses did what God said. He went back to Egypt. He took all his people away from the bad king. They did not have to work for the king again. Do you do what your mother and father want you to do? Some new words is bush, Egypt, princess. How did Moses obey God? Do you obey God? Do you obey your mother and father? Do you obey them as much as you should? What are some things mother or father want you to do each day? Think of the things they want you to do most. Do you do them all? Do you do any of them? See how many you can do now. Then see how many you can do each day this week. Nehemiah does what God wants. "Why are you so sad?" the king asked Nehemiah one day. Nehemiah lived in a country far away from his home. He was the king's helper in this country. "I'm thinking of our beautiful city back home," Nehemiah said. Long ago, some people tore it down. They tore the walls down too. Those beautiful walls have never been put together again. But what do you want me to do? The king asked. Please, let me go home to my city, Nehemiah said. Let me take some men with me. They will help me put the walls together again. The king smiled. He was glad that he could help this good man. I will let you go, the king said. You may put the walls together again. Nehemiah took some soldiers with him. He took a letter from the king. The letter said that Nehemiah could put the walls together again. The men in the city were happy to see Nehemiah. They helped him find people to work on the walls. Soon many people were putting the walls together. But some people outside the city did not like this. They were afraid. Nehemiah must not put the walls together, they said. If he does, the city will be too strong. Then we can never take it. The people tried to keep Nehemiah from putting the walls together. But God helped Nehemiah. He would not let these people stop Nehemiah. Nehemiah was doing something that God wanted. At last the walls were put together. Many people came to see the new walls. They thanked God for these beautiful walls, and they thanked God for sending Nehemiah to help. Will you do one thing for God this week? The new words are Nehemiah, tore, outside, tried, soldier, strong, wall. What if Nehemiah had not gone to his home city? The walls may never have been put together again. What if you do not obey God or your mother and father? Do you think that something may never get done? Make some pictures of boys and girls who are helpers. What can you do to help God? Ask mother or father what you can do to help him. Will you do one thing for God this week?